doesn't exist. As the proverb says, tomorrow never comes. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There never will be, because time is always now.
Welcome to the Philosophical Minds Podcast, the podcast about the stuff we wonder about.
And other things.
All right, we are here with Israel Ruiz, aka Raven of Materia Artium Labs. First, I want to pay you some compliments. First of all, your symbol is sick. So simple, but awesome. Second, I really enjoy the information you're putting out there from time to time, like pretty unique things or less shared aspects of the work, like impregnating lead acetate crystals, interesting extraction techniques, that tree of life or tree of Saturn thing that was pretty badass, and then some animal work, and then these sort of stream of consciousness rants that you've done. I love that kind of like free style, and listening to them, they've kind of like really triggered a lot of ideas and thoughts and contemplations within myself. But yeah, thank you for coming and doing this. I think this is going to be an awesome conversation.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So I'd love to get into the nature of nature, and if you'd just allow me to, I'm probably going to rant here for a moment, because and listening
It's all good.
to some of your messages you put out, for example, you're talking about mimicking nature, and it really acted as kind of like a catalyst for me that opened like a floodgate within my own self of contemplation around this. And I started thinking about like, what does nature do? And some thoughts that came through was this quote, improvatus apto quod victim. It's like nature improvises, adapts, and overcomes. It has revolutionary as well as evolutionary inclinations, like revolutionary in the sense of Ouroboros, or those Saturnian cyclical processes of Father Time reaping what we sow and such, that karmic law, like death and rebirth, or the moon cycles, etc. And then like evolutionary in the sense of reactionary or responsive, like fusions, crystallizations, conversions, transformations, like transmutations. So it's like the state of nature is one of both innovation and transmutation, with obvious and inevitable like degenerative spurts of destruction trickled in there on the other end of the spectrum, but that's like Solve et Coagula, and all of which humanity are a part of, us conscious beings inhabiting physical bodies, and thinking of our place in it all. We're kind of like vapor molecule, like abundant cultures of bacteria expanding outwardly from the exhalation of the breath of God, that like generative source or force, like the Om in expansion, or the collective Atman, like that we emerge from, that mercurial universal spirit of like I amness. And I want to touch on that archetype with you, but after this next notion, I want to get your thoughts. But in thinking of alchemy, how like consciousness relates to matter, or like the art and practice of transmutation of consciousness and matter in both realms of mentalism and materialism, like the abstract from mind and concrete and matter. And something I loved that I was hearing you speak about, you spoke to like the aim of attunement with nature, like the attunement with what is, like the planetary alignments in your environment locally, from the micro to the macro, through like observation and just like attentive recognition. And it's like making oneself aware or receptive to what's taking place by observation and like meditation, like active or passive, just kind of like harmonizing. And that's what's up, I think, man. And anyway, I just think that's dope that you just kind of like let your mind fly like that organically in the way that you do. And I'm wondering, I guess I have a couple questions that spring out of this. But first of all, I'm just curious, like with all that in mind, like what sort of shifts in perspective have you kind of like undergone, or like what newly formed perceptions have arisen within you, like as a result of your in-depth immersion into alchemy, say from like the time of your first kind of like taking interest and getting your feet wet days in regards to your thinking then versus now, or like expectations going into it, and then maybe some unexpected or substantial insights and understandings that have resulted in parallel with your work? If that, I don't know, I can kind of just leave that for you to respond to.
Well, it's actually funny too, because I've thought about this. When I was a child, I was just fascinated by the outside world, but it was never, I did not understand this when I was a child, right? But using memory as a tool, looking back, you know, being scolded by teachers and guidance counselors and deans because instead of doing the schoolwork, I would just stare out the window. And I wasn't interested in the buildings of New York City or the people walking by. I didn't care since I was a child. But I would watch, I used to think that I was imagining this stuff, but I would watch, you know, there's like a million pigeons in New York, and I would watch them go into certain flight patterns. Or I would watch a bunch of rats running by in a certain, it's really hard to explain. And when you're a kid, you're tapped into it already. And as you age, you're indoctrinated out of the realization of these things and more into the program that we live in as a society, right? What are you going to be when you grow up? And everything else after that. But I was always fascinated by nature, and I always thought I was going to be a biologist or a marine biologist because I just love nature. But those sciences are so specific to a little category. So I didn't want to have to do, you know, get a freaking PhD in a certain species of animal or anything like that. So I went through life, and I just always had this fascination with nature. But I never fed that fascination that I had because anyone that spoke about nature was speaking about it either through a scientific lens or through a spiritual lens. And the spiritual one got my attention for a while, but I was always a very gut-driven individual. Since I was a kid, I didn't understand, but I just knew that there was something, I was looking at something and I knew there was something there, but I didn't have any context, right? I didn't have any syntax to it. And I mean, fast forwarding now to my work with Alchemy, it's just all starting to fall into place. It's like, oh, I'm just going back. A lot of me is going back to realizations of my childhood and my fascination with nature. But there was no one there that could explain to me, you know, what the heck it was that I was observing at all. And now I've tried, like I got into Wicca, paganism, right, Kabbalah, and all this type of magic influences to make a connection with nature. And that was the thing too, is the thing that turned me off to the idea of magic and spirituality was that the way that they would point at nature, it's like, no, that's not it. That's not it, because when I go into the woods by myself or with my dog, Alistair, I can take a mushroom or I could just be completely sober. There's something happening, and it's not so much of a spiritual connection. I just see patterns. I see things happening. And when I'm alone, I start to see processes ahead of time. In other words, I can see a tree, but if I keep staring at the tree, I start seeing this tree like go through its lifetime, right? And it's bearing fruit. I just start to see the cycles of life and quote unquote death. And after a while, before the alchemy, I kind of just gave up. Like, all right, I like you, nature. I don't know what it is about you, but you're amazing. And I'm not talking about the fun facts from, you know, Scholastic News and National Geographic. There was something else going on that was way more profound, way more beautiful. And it didn't need to be analyzed. It just needed to be observed. And even with alchemy, I've only been working with this for the last maybe 6 years, the lab alchemy, a little over 3 years. And even then, with all, it's a lot of time when you're in the lab. But it wasn't until recently, maybe the end of last summer, that I started to realize, like, oh, everything is a lie. It's an illusion, and my belief of that illusion is a delusion. And when I finally started making sense of what I was observing, which was nature, then I lost. It was like immediately, I lost interest in desire, in having a goal or an outcome. Like a certain merit, all that stuff fell away because nature is already doing it, and she's doing it all the time. She's been doing this before we came into this place. She's doing it now, and she'll do it even when we leave this reality, And I started seeing, oh, nature, that's the truth. And if I want to know what the truth is, and I want to know what I am, who I am, all I need to do is go look at nature. But without the stories of spirits and gods and demigods and stuff. And they're fun. It's like Joseph Campbell, right? Everything is a story. But what I came to find out was the stories just help the mind kind of articulate what's going on. This is why we can read a book on alchemy and start to look at correspondences with the planets and the plants and the metals and everything. We see a correlation between everything. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have any more questions, which was, for me personally, very special. I didn't have any more questions. I didn't want to figure anything out. Even I don't know everything about lab processes. I'm learning, and I'll always be learning. But for the first time in the many, many years that I've been on this planet, I didn't have anything to figure out. It just comes to me. So I'm not trying to work with lead or, iron. All these things just keep coming to me. And that has become the practice. And I started realizing, oh, this thing with alchemy is just the practice of love. And the practice of love sounds so corny, especially after the 60s and the baby boomers and the Beatles and stuff. And people will ask me, and to this day, I still tell them, like, it's just the art of love. It's the practice of love, allowing, imitating, mimicking, and reproducing the same thing that's already happening, just with the difference. The difference is, unlike science or physics or anything like that, I'm not trying to make anything happen. I'm just realizing that in every process that is occurring in nature, that if you look at all the processes that are going on in nature, you can pick one out, but in that process, there are so many other processes happening also. And you can say that nature distracts itself, right? So the idea of gold being formed in earth can take thousands of years, right? But it takes that long because there are other things happening, potassium, calcium, zinc, all these other things around the thing that would become gold. It's also happening at the same time. So it's kind of like nature is distracted, just the same way that the mind distracts itself with all these other stories. And what we do in the lab is that we keep observing, which is love, right? I don't want to change anything. You're perfect, just the way you are. But you can reach in and pull a certain process that's happening in nature, omit all the distractions that are going on, and then you can have gold grow in 9 months, which is interesting, right? It's just like the gestation period of a human. But yeah, once I started to look at all this, well, then my past became irrelevant except for the moments that I would stare out the window of my school and be distracted by the little things that were happening and that people call synchronicities or magic, or it's speaking to me, it's communicating. It just started giving context to everything. Like, oh, I'm not here for any purpose. I'm not here to do anything. The fact that I'm here creates the idea that it's all happening.
Mm.
But yeah.
That's fascinating. And
Yeah.
so do you feel kind of like you've come to a point where like you're so aligned with nature now that it's like do you feel that there's sort of a overarching beingness to nature that is kind of acting through you in a sense, or how kind of would you like articulate that? I don't know if that makes sense.
I think you said it. That's the one that I even had a very close friend of mine here yesterday, and he was having a hard time grasping the fact that I don't have any. If I had a desire, I'm here already. That was the desire for me to be here. The rest of it is in the hands of nature or God, the alien in the simulation, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, right? My life is dictated by that. And that's it. So when I look at nature, when I go outside, I don't have to try anymore. I have fascination. And the fascination you can kind of articulate it as maybe questions, but I'm speechless. I'm just watching. So I have questions. That's why I'm speechless. Like, how did you do that? It's like, aha, well, now that you see it, that's your journey. Like, fuck, okay, sure. This is great. I mean, this is what I live for. The rest of the stuff is just fillers, I guess. You know, money, work, gotta pay the bills. But and I'm cool with that now. I used to have a problem with it. Money's evil or whatever. But yeah, now I don't really have to think, if at all. And it's still, that's a practice within itself, right? The art of no mind. But you have to have a mind. It's the only way to have a reality, right? The mind is imagining it all inside of itself. So gotta have a mind. But it's this practice of letting go, and which is part of love. Letting go, accepting. You accept it, you accept yourself. You surrender to it, you surrender to yourself. And the imaginary line or division between nature and me or I doesn't exist. So I don't have to think anymore. I still think, right? Sometimes I get an urge, I'm like, yeah, I want a seltzer or I want a rosé. But it's just part of the story, right? I mean, There has to be a story. If I came here to just be awe, and I know that I'm awe, and awe is I, and blah, 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 well, that shit is like, what was the point of coming here? You have to forget to remember, and then it's the cosmic giggle, and you laugh at yourself. Oh, I forget every time. It's the only way that I could believe it, right? But yeah, I've been realizing that nature, God, whatever we call it nowadays, it just knows everything. And that's the idea of Lucifer and the Great Fall, right? People have this negative, evil connotation of Lucifer. It's like, no, man, it's in Genesis, and it was the first mind, the only mind, the mind, right? Lucifer, Hermes, Mercury, same guy, same dude. And the rebellion, you know, you mean to tell me that I can, you've given me the power of you. I have the power of a God. I can create, destroy, I can procreate, I can murder, I can party, snort, smoke, dance. And you want me to do what? Just be empty and wait for you to tell me what to do? And that was the Great Fall, the Great Rebellion. For the sake of this epic story of, I have done everything through infinity, through all space time. And now I'm ready to go home. And I feel that this is part of the art of alchemy. But it's not that alchemy has a purpose. It's more of, that's just what it is. And alchemy became this art, this practice of practicing love. How can I exist and be without touching or affecting or manipulating? How can I exist without thinking that I need anything? And that's the that's part of the practice, right? That's the big guy right there. It's like, wait, I don't need anything? Like, no. You just trust that, yeah, but I need new labware. Right, so you don't need money. Oh yeah, I guess I don't need money. No. And you don't need anything. If you need a new Pelican, the universe will bring you a Pelican. It'll give you a job that'll make you a bunch of money, or someone will drive halfway across the country or get on a plane from another country and literally give it to you. Like, what? Like, yeah. It's not because you're manifesting. You don't need to manifest. Because if you're manifesting, you're telling the universe that you're lacking. If you're lacking, then you're not complete. If you're not complete, you're not whole. And if you're not whole, then you're caught up in a delusion. And that's what I've been coming to the realization with alchemy is, you know, it's almost like there is no alchemy. It's, but there has to be a story. So alchemy is the honcho of stories, which all other stories came from. What is the meaning of life? Well, I mean, it's right here. What is the purpose of life? What's in here? Where am I going in my life? Like, it's all right there, but it's so simple that it becomes the most complex thing ever. And no one can, but it's always in your face, right? They always say the truth is always in front of you. It's just, when are you going to stop? Stop trying. When are you going to, stop trying to make things happen? Stop telling the universe that you are lacking in need of anything. And you'll start to see that it's all being given to you. But the universe only understands yes and go. So yeah, that's where magic comes in, and you write down on a piece of paper, I need $1,000, and you put it on your mirror and you brush your teeth to it in the morning and all this shit, and you got $1,000. And usually when we manifest these things, we kind of get corrupt because it was coming from a corrupt place, right? It's like, oh, I'm missing. But she's always had it the entire time. But the practice is letting go. And that's what this thing with alchemy, and it's like people think that they're sick, that they need these Spagyrics, that they need these tinctures and all that stuff. And look, I'm not try not to curse. I'm not like shitting on it, you know. It's just it's part of it as you mature through life, through this existence. It's this massive, it seems so simple that you don't need anything and the universe always has you. So you don't have to ask. But the mind, it's just the game of the mind. The mind wanted to exist and experience, and it thought that it knew better. And it's like, no, we don't know better than nature. That's why we're in the state that we're in. It's not a bad state or a good state. It's just, we are what we are. I mean, the fact that we're still pumping stuff out of the ground to create combustion in an engine so that we can drive from point A to point B, it's like, we have iPhones. Why are we still driving cars? Why is it still happening? It's like, yeah, because we keep thinking that we need X, Y, Z.
That's right. And there's a lot of things I want to respond to you about that.
Yeah.
One thing real quick, you just said a moment ago, you're trying not to curse. I'm wondering your thoughts about that. Like, do you think that certain words hold a certain kind of like vibrational energy that it has like negative effects, or what are your thoughts behind that?
That was a conversation I had yesterday. It's not that if you believe that words hold power, or yeah, words have power, they hold power, then yeah, that's what's up. To me, it's your intention. Oh, that's what it was. It was about the N word.
Mhm.
So I grew up. I'm ethnic. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm from the hood. I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up in the ghetto, right? And yeah, so the word friend is that's how I understand that word. And everyone around me, that's how we always understood that word. And I said it in front of someone yesterday, and he said, I don't like that word. I'm like, oh, really? Okay. I'm not going to stop using it. I mean, I don't think about it, and it's not who I am. It has nothing to do with that. It's just, it's a word, but I can't, it's just a lot of effort for me to go into the ether and change my vocabulary. Don't get me wrong. You know, if I'm at work, I don't work for people anymore, but if I did, customer service, right? And I told him, but you're my friend. I don't want anything from you. I don't need a tip from you. I don't need $1 in my tip jar. So I'm just gonna be. I'm not being me. I'm just being. And this is how I am. What I don't have to think about the masks that I have to wear. But back to the word thing. If you're using language unconsciously, then the fact that you're using it, even though it's unconscious, you abide by the rules that have been dictated to the use of all words.
Mm.
But if you are conscious, then you're the motherfucker. Like, you're the guy, you're the thing, you make it happen. And if it's in your intention, because I can say I love you to someone and have very cynical or dark intentions, but I'm using the word love. So to me, it's just like words of power. We're talking about the logos here, right? The word.
Mm-hmm.
We used to live in a time in space where we never spoke. The only time that we opened our mouths to say anything was to materialize it. But that was so long ago. So now we just talk, you know, unconsciously. So it's not that be careful of the words that you use. It's I'm conscious of the words that I use, because I give definition to my world.
Yeah.
There's my world, me, Raven, human, and then there's and that world interacts with other human worlds, and then there's nature, which doesn't use words.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, she's cool.
This is so interesting because, so in talking to Daniel Wiseman in our last convo, a lot of things he said really got me thinking. And one in particular was like the way in which we use language and its context dependency and individual associations. And it's so interesting. We all think, or many of us think, that we have this thought, like, you speak English, I speak English, we must be able to, quote unquote, understand each other because we use similar words and such. Even the word understand itself, divine isn't defined equally across the board. And I think that word is highly misunderstood. At least it was for me.
Right.
I mean, you can definitely be knowledgeable, but lack understanding. I don't know. Anyway, people do this thing all the time, myself included, where, all parties involved in a conversation think they understand each other, although they may define entire sentences differently depending on their perceptions and associations and conceptual or relative centers of gravity with words. So the reason I bring this up also is it's so evident in alchemy with so many words or archetypes, and such, like, I often ask a lot of guests similar or the same questions to get each person's take on it, because I feel it kind of helps inform like a greater overall understanding of any given thing. And so you had mentioned, or I had mentioned earlier, like, or both, the Mercury and that I amness and all that. I wanted to get your take on the Mercury, Hermes, Thoth, Thoth. How do you pronounce? I don't know how you pronounce Thoth or Thoth.
I say Thoth.
Okay, Thoth.
But
But that archetype, and I don't know, I mean, it could go in so many directions, I think, but yeah, what's your kind of like understanding and take on that whole archetype?
Well, like you said, like it can go in any direction, and that's because it is every direction. Yeah, so I'll just use Hermes just because I have a personal affinity with that. That it came to me, I had no idea what the name was, but Hermes. If you think about the 7 days of the week, the day that's in the middle of the week is Wednesday, right? Odin, Woden, Hermes, Mercury, Thoth. And when we talk about metallic alchemy, for example, we understand that if you're doing the work, as you start to get into the more dangerous but advanced work in the metallic realm, Mercury, Quicksilver, the elemental Mercury, is the mother of all metals. So all metals exist because of Mercury. So all life exists because of Mercury. Everything exists and is because of Hermes. He's the god of magic, spells, anything that moves forward. He's the middle of everything. He's the god of the crossroads. He's actually the thing that like a crossroad is actually still one road, but this thing called Hermes stands in the middle of the road and creates two roads.
Boundary.
And the idea of Hermes is that he's the god of joints, of tendons, connective tissue. It's the thing that connects the left to the right. In the yin and yang symbol, everyone gets caught up in, black has white in it, and white has black in it, light has dark, and dark has light. It's like, yeah, no, that's cute, but do you know about the line that creates it? And people get baffled. What are you talking about? Like, the line. The only reason that there's a black and white is because there's a line in the middle of it. It's a division. It's just the idea of separation, but all it's doing is just giving texture to everything. It's giving context. Hermes creates all the archetypes. So all the archetypes are actually Hermes. They're Mercury. But, for the one thing or the all to come here and pretend that you're Sky and I'm Raven, it needs to create the idea of separation of other. So from there, you have everything. It's this, it's the mind. The mind has created everything, whether you believe it or not, but everything that is, or the belief of what is 100% Hermes. But interestingly enough, he's also the dude that the idea is alchemy came to him, or he created alchemy, which to me kind of sounds like a fail-safe switch. Like if this was a dream or a simulation, for example, right? The only way that I'm going to play this game is by forgetting what I am or who I am, or forgetting that I am, so that I could pretend that you're Sky and I'm Raven for the sake of performance, right? And I create these 6 other archetypes from lead to gold, and they all have their correspondences. They all interact with each other. They all have masculine or feminine properties. And let's watch the positive and the negative electrical charges interact with each other to create something. But it's the mind. It's the thing that's having all ideas. Whether you remember having all these ideas or not, it's the same mofo throughout the freaking board the entire time. And yeah, that was the name that came to me 7 years ago actually now. I had no idea about alchemy. I never heard of it. I never heard of the Philosopher's Stone or Hermes Trismegistus. It just came out of me through what I thought at the time was psychosis. I thought I was batshit crazy. I thought I lost my mind, but that's what was happening. I was losing my mind. which is very healthy. It's not the best thing to go through in our society, but I honestly, dude, in any society, because even in a shamanically inclined society, they'll still get you trapped in the game of spirituality. And if you know about the 3 principles in alchemy, it's the soul, the sulfur, essential oil, and then it's the spirit, the mind, the mercury, and then it's the salt. So it's like, oh, which back to the alchemy thing, I mean, it makes sense that this god or deity or persona, archetype named Hermes, Mercury, Thoth, would have a thought, and just in case stuff got too real, we got too enmeshed in the game, in the performance, the illusion, there was like a spell breaker. I call that alchemy. It was the only way to actually just break the spell that I cast on myself, because it's not anyone else, right? It's just Hermes pretending to be everything else in infinity, interacting with infinity, which is still itself. And then this alchemy gig shows up, and he created it as a failsafe to kind of get him to eject out of the illusion. Not get out of here, right? You don't have to get out of the matrix or anything, but it's a way of, oh, there's nothing wrong. I'm just gonna perform. I'm gonna play with self as nature. And then, yeah. And that character, Hermes, has come up several times in human history through different men and women calling themselves Hermes. But it's that archetype, it's that raw energy coming out through them, declaring itself, because it's almost, I call it a symptom of the soul just coming through. And it starts small, right? It's like crystals and magic and writing spells and joining some sort of occult group. You start to do astrology. But if you go further, you always find the alchemy part, and it's inevitable. If you do it, if you go for it, it's inevitable. You find the alchemy performance, because it's just synonymous with it, right? Like, even in metallic alchemy, eventually you start to understand that the reason that all the metals are created is because mercury is interacting with sulfur, like organic sulfur. And depending on the conditions of the sulfur, pressure, temperature, other elements around it, and the mercury, like elemental mercury, those two will create every single metal. And those two can also be perfected. They can be cleansed of their diseases, of their impurities. And I mean, yeah, you can make gold grow in your lab as crystals in 9 months just by doing these things. But you have to keep evolving mercury. You have to keep changing mercury. For example, there's like one called animated mercury. I won't get into it. It's just like there's so many stages of mercury. There's so many stages of Hermes, the mind. It's almost like you lost yourself and you want to, maybe you don't even want to find yourself. It's just inevitable. And back to the nature conversation, there really isn't anything to do. There isn't anything to do. There's nothing to see, nowhere to go, nothing to be had, because if you're still, I always say that my mantra for myself, and I'm going to use the word profanity. I always say, shut the fuck up, mind your fucking business, and do your fucking work. And when I do those things, everything happens. I don't have to try anymore. It's like, oh, that's Hermes. If I'm empty and I just allow. But Hermes is also being motivated by something more than it. And that's where things start getting tricky. That there's something bigger than you. That there's something more powerful than you. And there's something that knows more than you. And that thing created you. And that your only purpose in life is just to be here and be empty. And it'll tell you what to do. It's like, oh, got it. Hermes, alchemy. Okay.
That's
So I don't have to figure anything else out. Like, no, I'll give you jobs. It's like that app, handyman.com or handy.com. It's just like, they'll just text you. God will just text you. All right, you're going to do lead acetate again. Again? Don't question it. Okay.
damn, that's fascinating. Okay. So I wanted to ask, I mean, you're like maybe one of the only ones I've really seen posting or putting out stuff about like the animal work. It's fascinating to me, and I don't really know anything about it. I mean, I'm sure obviously there's that alchemical processes within it, but maybe you could kind of like get into that a little bit and elaborate on like what you've been doing with that.
Yeah. What, where do I start with it? So the animal alchemy, I get asked this a lot too, because from all different aspects of reality, some people are more in the vegan, PETA kind of thing, you know. Others, they're cool with it, but they're just like, why though? And it's because people see a difference between the plants and the animals, right? And the animal work came to me, and that was my difficult part of alchemy. Of all the other things, I didn't care about working with nitric acid and hydrochloric acid. Like, I'm cool with that stuff. I don't even have a background in chemistry. I just trust, like, Jesus has the wheel. I'm just gonna do this thing. But I think the first week that I moved here at its house, the person that I was working for, he was already doing animal alchemy. I had this raven in front of my door. I woke up in the morning, went outside to go smoke, have a coffee, and I just see this thing flapping on the ground. It was the biggest raven that I've ever seen in my life. And I started freaking out. I was like, shit, I gotta save its life. I ran to the person. I'm like, bro, what do I do? It's like, oh, you just gotta separate the three principles. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? This isn't a plant. Like, no, it's not. But a plant is also not a plant. That's just an idea that we have. That's a story. It's like, oh shit. Like, yeah. So you need to get all three principles from every part of the animal. It's like, fuck. Okay. And it was my first time, and sucked because the raven was just dying, and all the other times that the animals come, I like love animals, and I thought I can't hunt anything. It's like, well, it's all you. Okay, I could hunt something, but I never had to. These animals would just show up, and the animal work, even to this day, and I think I keep that as a way of humbling me, keeping me as a human. With it's the animals that allow me to have human interactions with humans. If it wasn't for the animals, I'd probably be a hermit in a mountain and stay the fuck away from humans as much as possible, or completely. And it seemed like the universe had this planned out and indoctrinated me with the love of animals, and it knew that I would do this work. But it's interesting because the animal work in alchemy is actually just like all the other works. It's important because when you look at the realms of plants, animals, minerals, and metals, usually the minerals and metals are cataloged in the same space, but I'll talk about them as being separate. So the animals are above the vegetable realm. So it's animal on the top, then it's the vegetable, and below the vegetable is the mineral metallic realm. So the mineral metallic realm is everything in nature that's fixed. The vegetable realm is in the middle of fixed and volatile, and the animal work, things are volatile, and you can extract different things from animals that are keys to future things as you progress through the realms. You know, for example, in the vegetable realm, you learn that you can take wine and convert it into vinegar, right? And vinegar is just dilutes acetic acid. And if you process that, you can get what's called glacial acetic acid. Glacial acetic acid is a menstruum, it's a solvent, just like pure spirit, pure ethanol or methanol or acetone or hexane. They're all very volatile, and they're all ways of extracting different types of sulfurs through different realms, right? There's things inside of the animal realm that act as keys that move you forward to your work, which I found it interesting that the only thing that people talk about is the vegetable and the mineral metallic realm, but never about the animal. And I can see why. I've never had any backlash about my animal work. I think it's because I'm just so upfront about it. It's like, this is what I do. I don't care about anybody's beliefs or anything. I have a very beautiful connection with the animals. I have that connection with the metals and the minerals and the plants. It's just extra when it comes to the animals. And it's something about the animal realm. There's something inside of the salts. They're much more volatile. And the more volatile something is, the more inclined it is to be able to absorb or extract the sulfur or the essential oil out of something. And so that was the lab sense of the animal realm. But how it actually started with me was understanding that there's a spiritual belief about animals being spirit guides or animal guides. And it makes sense when you think about correspondence, right? So every plant has planetary correspondences. Every plant has all 7. Everything that moves, everything, minerals, vegetables, and animals has all 7 planetary correspondences, except for the metals. The metals are just that correspondence, right? Or just that thing. But there was something very beautiful and mystical about the animal work that I was told about it, but when I did it myself, then I fully understood. All right, I'm taking this snake's life. I don't want to because I love animals. But the universe and I have an understanding. The universe already told me, I will present you with these gifts. You will cry, it will hurt, but you will do it and you'll get over yourself and you will see why I brought this to you. So when you think about these correspondences and you apply them into the animals, you get to realize, oh, that the animals are teaching me what I was experiencing with the plants that I couldn't understand at first, which was this wisdom based on their archetypes or on their correspondence. So I did the raven, and when you look at the correspondence of a raven, they are the trickster. And the trickster is Hermes, it's Mercury. So there's a lot of wisdom there. And I took it and I was able to interact the same way that science understands that ravens have a very complex system of language. They mimic other animals. They are scavengers. They can eat things that are dead and putrefying and decaying and rotting. They're adaptable. They adapt to their environment. So they are like mirrors. They're almost empty in a way. But everything has a sense of humor to them. Whether it's death or life, problems, it doesn't matter. They're always laughing. They're always laughing at you. And I did it. I did this animal. I drank the entire thing, and that's exactly what happened. And then the serpent showed up, and there's a lot of serpents actually that summer. The last 2 summers, they started showing up, and I was just processing them and collecting their blood and fermenting part of the blood, fermenting the organs, and extracting the sulfur out of the bones, out of the blood, out of the organs, using different menstruums and alcohols. And I put all that stuff together and drank it. I was like, oh shit, you're still showing me stuff about myself, right? Which was how, the serpent has to do with the mystique of life, the mysteries, the secrets, the shadows, the in-between worlds. And I drank it, and I was like, okay, that was interesting. I became a serpent. I drank the entire first Spagyric. I drank the whole thing. It was like half a gallon. Not half a gallon, sorry. It was like a quart of this serpent Spagyric. I drank the whole thing. I fell asleep. My consciousness left into a bull snake. I became the bull snake. I lived, I smelled, I fucked, I just journeyed and hunted like a serpent. And then I came back. It's like, wow, that was trippy. Now what? But then for months after that, I started to understand that I was letting go of, I was sacrificing things that I was attached to, but I had no intention. It was just what was happening. Like, can you give this up? Yeah. Can you give that up? Yeah. The same way that the serpent gave up its limbs for the sake of knowledge and wisdom. And it's like, oh, I didn't even have to try. It was all just coming to me. And that got intensified when I worked on a barred owl. And I mean, I probably shouldn't talk about that, but this bird, and same thing. I didn't have to seek anymore. The animal shows itself. I do this work with it. It's painful. My emotion, it's art, right? My emotions, my thoughts, my beliefs, everything, my physical body is involved in this thing. My senses, specifically my olfactory, which is the most powerful sense of the body, was involved in all these processes. And I started realizing, oh, there are just aspects of myself, or Hermes, that is blown into smithereens in infinity, and I'm interacting with it right now. And it's called a raven, or a tarantula, or a scorpion, or a hawk, or whatever the animal is, So I know that there's more stuff that I'm gonna figure out when it comes to the alchemical lab work part of it, because everything is a key to another door. And when you go to that door, you will find new keys, and those new keys will bring you back to old work that you were doing, so that you continue to exalt and refine. So I'm doing things in the metallic realm now that are bringing me back to the animal realm and the vegetable realm, which is allowing me to create a Spagyric not with the animals, but with the plants, in a fraction of the time. And it's just understanding, it's like, the illusion is that it's an animal, and the correspondence is a part of the illusion. But if you're empty, and this is what the animals started showing me, if you're just empty and you're listening, you're not thinking, you're not trying, you're not seeking, you're just open. That's love. They will show you everything. So I started realizing with the animals, like, oh, I mean, there really isn't any animals or plants or anything like that. It's just but for the sake of the story, this animal is teaching me something. And it'll teach you things about your character, things that you're doing great in, and things you need to address, some of your bullshit. But once you get past all that human stuff, the animal work starts to show you, oh, we're just keys that you designed for yourself. It's kind of like crumb trails that the animals leave. And I have the relationship that I have with the animal work is it's so profound. I hear them speak to me. I don't tell people that, but they speak to me and they show up in my dreams and they tell me everything that is necessary for me to know at the moment. So that's been the journey through alchemy and the animal work that I've been experiencing.
This is super fascinating to me because I kind of had that feeling that you would say something along those lines, and it's because of just my communications with various people, like within herbalism and even just, from the plant realm, kind of getting these parallel people saying similar things from the various different plants that they've ingested and or smoked or whatever, and how they have these consciousnesses to them that show up in their reality, and it's reoccurring and it's consistent with multiple people. And it reminds me kind of like Carlos Castaneda's stuff with like peyote or datura. But I wanted to ask, so like with the animal stuff, is that considered, like what you're making, is that considered or called like a spagyric? Is it like an animal spagyric or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because you're still isolating, separating, purifying, and recombining the three principles of said animal. You know what I mean? Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry about that. I just
No, that's cool.
But and then so while we're kind of talking about that, I think it'd be cool just for people listening. I was wondering if you could expand on like the difference between, or like a spagyric, a quintessence, a magistrate, these kind of various creations and like
forms or expressions of
and like what is it that differentiates one for another? Maybe we can kind of just like run kind of through them real quick.
I'll keep it kind of surface because I want to keep the mystery going. But when it comes to, so you have you have a cold, right? So you take rosemary, dried rosemary, you put it in hot water and you make a tea and you drink it. And it works, not all the time, but sometimes. Or you could take rosemary and put it inside of Everclear. And doing that allows you to put more rosemary in there until the tincture becomes super saturated. So then you have a high concentration of this thing. And the idea is it's all revolving around the soul, or the sulfur, or the essential oil, right? That's what has all the qualities to it. And extracting the soul or the sulfur, honestly, it's the easy part. Where it becomes more tedious is getting things to ferment, to give you a spirit. And the reason you want a spirit is because an essential oil, and it's not really an oil, but it's a volatile oil, and it's hydrophobic. It doesn't like water. So when you drink a tea, a lot of the essential oil isn't even being absorbed into the body. When you make a tincture, it's still happening, but it's concentrated, and you have it in alcohol. Alcohol is hydroscopic, like it's anhydrous. It likes water. And essential oils have an affinity for alcohol, for spirit, where they just disperse, they open up, they express. They're like, yeah, I'm all yours, girl, into the spirit. So that's sulfur inside of the spirit. And because spirit loves water, it'll be absorbed through the skin, it'll be absorbed through the tissues, through the cell walls very quickly. If it has the molecules inside of the essential oil, it'll bring it deeper into the body. And then if you do the calcination part, which is important, purifying the body, crystallization, then recalcination and recrystallization, and the more perfect or pure you make the physical body, the mineral or the crystal, the mineral acts like a bridge. So it's almost like it gives a road for the spirit to go even deeper, and the spirit is carrying the essential oil on his shoulders. So that would be the idea of making a basic alchemically derived spagyric, right? You distill off the oil, put that to the side, take that plant matter, ferment it so you get the spirit or the alcohol. Once you do that, and that takes forever, put that to the side, then take that same plant matter, calcine it, purify the body, crystallize it through that whole process, take the 3 principles, recombine them, let them digest for the alchemical or medical month, 40 days, 40 nights. And when you drink it, it's like 400 times more powerful than any tea or tincture, because it has the intelligence of the philosophy of what it is to exalt all 3 principles, right? So when you start to get into things like magistrates, and you're just taking the processes that each principle requires, you're just taking it even further. Like with the salts of a plant, instead of using distilled water, when you pour, when you take your ashes, you get into a white ash, you put it in a container, and then you put distilled water, stir it, next day decant it, filter, let that evaporate, and you get crystals, right? Instead of using water, you can use vinegar, because vinegar will extract some extra stuff out of it. And then you do that, and yeah, it just gets more intricate. I mean, I'll give you an example. There are acetate, for example. An acetate, you can say it's the salt of a metal, or a metal turned into a salt, right? So you take lead, turn into lead oxide by roasting it. And then once you got a really good lead oxide, you use acetic acid, and that'll dissolve into the solution of acetic acid, becoming lead acetate, but you won't see anything in it. You let that evaporate, and you'll get crystals. They're called lead acetate crystals. So you just turn lead into an acetate. And you take that lead acetate, and you need a lot for lead, because lead doesn't give it up. Makes sense, lead. But if you get enough of it, you'll get the essential oil out of it through what's called dry or destructive distillation. So you take the lead acetate crystals, and the sulfur is in there. But you can't eat straight up lead. I mean, you can, but that's going to suck in the long run. The body doesn't want to consume straight metals. So these different things like acetate paths, which is the wet path, and magistrates, these are all just different ways of taking these processes even further. You're just purifying them even more. It's going to take longer. I mean, you could do a magistrate, and it could take you like 2 years to do this thing. And it's like, and I've been messing around with this stuff. I still have samples of my first Spagyrics, right? And then the stuff that I'm working on now, and I try it. I'm like, well, something different's changed. The more advanced work I do, the more I start to notice that the end product I'm not really experiencing something from it because I already went through it while I was making it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll have like my partner or a friend try it and they're like, oh my God, bro, I took one drop. I thought I was like tripping balls or something. And so I use my audience and my friends as like guinea pigs when it comes to this because I'm curious. I'm like, I didn't really feel anything, but the changes happened already within me. And they try it and they're like, no, this is insane. This is crazy. First of all, the first one you made was green or amber or whatever. This is red, or this is like aquamarine. Like, how did you do this? This is crazy. And it's like, yeah, man, the three principles have so much more to them than meets the eye. But that's why I always have people argue with me about this. And I never argue back. I just tell them, you'll see. Hey, don't stop in the plants. Oh, but the plants call me. No, I get it. The animals call me, but they keep telling me, no, bro, keep going further. And even when I'm doing the metallics are like, no, 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 I'm not done. Go back, take what you learned and go back to the plants. I'm like, for real? Yeah. Go back to take the fire, the secrets of fire that you learned from the metallics and go back to the plants. And I go back to the plants with those techniques. I'm just never a dull moment in the lab, for sure. I don't even know if there's a limit to how far you can take this. Because even if you make the stone, like the stone, you're not done. There's other stones. There's other technologies. There's really crazy shit that you can do. It's not just because I was getting, I want to say bored, kind of repetitive. I was like, really? Just these Spagyrics? That's it? That's what I do. Like, I'm the guy that just like helps people feel better. That's it. Now I'm like, I used to always want to do stage magic. I'm like, maybe I'll just get back into like getting my hands coordinated and articulated back into doing card tricks and stuff because I want to wow people. And they do get wow. They try the things that I make and they're just like, oh my God. And it's just like, it changed my life. It's like, great. Are you ever going to need any of this stuff ever again? Yeah. Like, damn it. The magic hasn't really happened yet for me. Like, how do I do this? How can I really wow the crowd, the audience? It's like, Raven, stop thinking. You're doing it. It's happening. Just shut the fuck up. Like, okay, fine. Yeah. That's
yeah, and man, that's cool. And it's interesting you mentioned that like with the vinegar. I think I was just listening to something recently. I was talking about, I think with the vinegar, it actually extracts and carries over the metallic compounds as well, I believe.
Yeah.
And then, so I think some people have different thoughts on like the spirit that you incorporate within the Spagyrics. And, some people use ethyl alcohol, and then some people would say you'd use the actual plant matter to create the spirit from that.
Yeah.
I don't know. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if you're first doing it, like, just do the work, right? Like, ferment the fucking plant for like 2 months because it takes forever. You have this giant gallon, you're only going to get 5% of it. It's alcohol. But just do it so you have it under your belt, because as within, so without. So if you're cheating things with Everclear, then you're cheating yourself. And I'm just saying that if you're going to progress to the realms, maybe you shouldn't cheat yourself and just do it. And there's the other thing is, sure, ethanol is the universal spirit, right? Not for metals, but for the plants and the animals. But the thing is that where is Everclear coming from? Is it grain or potatoes? But that's the data that's involved in it, though. So that's the intelligence. So I would rather use the data that came from the plants, the intelligence that came from it, as opposed to using like Everclear or just like lab grade ethanol. Because you start to realize when you get into the mineral metallic realms, and you get into things called menstruums, and those are really beautiful. They're amazing, but they lead you to what's called alkahest. And the alkahest, that's where I started to realize, oh, the intelligence of what I'm working with is actually very crucial for what I'm doing, specifically for me. Like I have, people always ask me, do you have any more products? I'm like, I don't sell product. Okay, do you have more things for your website? Like, I don't. Why? Because I have over 24 things right now that are still fermenting, coagulating, cohabitating. Like they just take so freaking long for such a small amount of something. But I see the difference. And, you know, like my partner and friends who I have them try these things, I'm like, here, try it. They're just like, what? Dude, you gotta mass produce this. Like, I can't. I can't. You don't understand how many, like the Blue Lotus, for example. It's so expensive. And you have to ferment flowers. And it takes so long. And you have to ferment so much flower material. But I have right now on shelves 6 different types of Blue Lotuses that I've made. Ends, several types of different enses, and Spagyrics, and then this last one, which is the full quintessence. There's a big difference just by the type, like just by the spirit, because some of them I have and I used ethanol, and the other ones I have, the last 3 that I made, it's just been fermenting. God, like 40 pounds of Blue Lotus. And I mean, I don't notice the difference when I ingest it, because I noticed the difference when I was making it. But the people that tried it, I mean, I've given my closest people samples of everything, and they're like, they're all beautiful. I get something different from all of them, but the stuff that you fermented, my mind gets blown. I'm not even thinking about, like, my heart's opening up and I'm feeling amazing. There's like this intellectual thing that happens in my mind that I just want to go and discover it. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's it. That's why I ferment everything. That's why. Because there is an intelligence that is expressing itself, and everything is intelligence. Express, manifest. And it's endemic to that specific thing. And I will ferment sagebrush, which it just grows out here like dandelion. It's just everywhere. And I will have different experiences with the spirits that I ferment out of the sagebrush, depending on what time of the year I fermented it, that I harvested the plant and extracted it and then fermented. Which sagebrush bush I extracted from. I'm like, oh wow, I can't. God, there's so many ways that I can offer this to the public, but I can't. Like, I would have to explain this whole elaborate story. It's like, this one, it's like with my perfumes. Like, this one's batch number 1. It's the same ingredients, but this is batch number 1, completed. Same ingredients, batch number 2. You try each batch, and you'll notice the difference between batch number 1 and batch number 2. So there's nothing wrong with using ethanol at all, but the experience is going to be different. Also, because, what is it? Ora et labora. You put into work, it'll reflect itself. So the more energy, time, emotion, right? Sometimes I go nuts. I'm like, you need to hurry up and fucking ferment. I gotta freaking make some stuff. All the trials and tribulations that come with it, it's totally worth it. And yeah, I used to use Everclear for everything because I learned. by those that taught me originally. You don't need to ferment, dude. It's the universal spirit. And I just got curious. It was actually with Blue Lotus. I was like, I'm not going to calcine this. I'm just going to ferment and see what happens. And I started doing it, and I started realizing, like, oh, yeah, ethanol, universal spirit. But there's data, there's information, there's intelligence inside of the plant itself that'll manifest, or it'll communicate itself through its spirit. And it'll be there in the data of the salt. And yeah. I mean, if you think about it too, that one plant, that data is in the sulfur, the spirit, and the salt, right? So it just makes sense to me to just do all three. And you're just completing the intelligence, but then exalting it, you know?
Yeah. Love it. Okay. So I wanted to know, do you have any insight or thoughts into like classification of compounds, say like a kingdom classification or a mineral versus a metallic, for example, without having access or being able to use like complex analytical equipment for detection? But say you get like a substance from someone, and like, are there ways to go about like analyzing a substance to detect like what it might be without using like some kind of crazy advanced equipment?
I don't know. And if you find out, you shoot me an email, dude, because there's like chromatography, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just so expensive. If you have the substance like in a vial, if you know, you'll find out, you let me know, because I get curious. I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm making, but there's so much more. Right. And I don't know about it. Okay. Now we're talking about plants, you know, I'm sure you already know, you can start to look at the physical correspondences, like it's green, but it's like silvery, so there's lunar, right? And the color of the fruits and stuff. But if it's in a vial, I've had people show up with minerals, you know, it's like this matrix with all these different crystals, and you're like, what is that? Like, bro, I have no idea. I mean, that's definitely quartz, so that's silicon, and that looks like mica, but I have no idea, bro.
That's interesting. Yeah. All right, so this next question is kind of like in regards to like the alchemy of the masses. So I want to get your thoughts. Like, I think it was Birch Driver. He asked me a question during this podcast I did with him in regards to like the more repetitive cycles of like political revolutions throughout history that are like reoccurring, like within, you know, governments rise and fall, and then there's revolution and rebirth, and rise and then and revolution, and on. But it kind of like, you know, it's like we're stuck in this cycle, it seems, and the question is like, is there a way to rise above this revolution into like a higher process or transcending revolution, maybe like an evolution or new type of order? Yeah. Then I was reflecting on some feedback from a friend of mine, John Aguilar. He had received from a shamanic therapist, and the message was that we're going to see like a completely new type of true leader arise. And it was like they, as there will be many, will be more of like a localized, and it will emerge organically or something along those lines. And I think I've kind of been seeing like this kind of thing occur, at least like within the last, 10 years or so, with just influential people or individuals kind of like wielding their swords or their influence wisely, and kind of having like an ability to affect great change politically or economically while operating outside of like the establishment. Like guys like, I don't know, Rogan come to mind, or, like some giant YouTube kids out there like that influence massive amounts of, like by donating money and planting trees and kind of like leading with that like example, doing real meaningful things. And I think this is going to like undergo a further frequency shift where like the power structure that we once knew kind of starts to break down and dissolve and decay, and those impurities will get separated off, and there will emerge like maybe and crystallize like within the consciousness of many individuals, like a sort of inner fire or obligatory motivation, I don't know, purpose, or like a driving intuition, like kind of like this thing you were talking about earlier with being in alignment with nature, I guess, that kind of propels people to just begin to like deeply recognize that, what we can't depend on this old power structure that has become so unstable. We've got to depend on ourselves and get shit done like on our own. And yeah, I'm just curious, like your perspective on this idea, if you have one, or any thoughts. I know it's speculative, but I'm curious your take on like the current trajectory of we the people as divided as we may currently be. Do you see any hope or truth in the notion of like rising to this higher density or higher vibration of some sort? Thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you, I'm gonna give you mine. So, and it's not fancy, it's not pretty or anything like that. It's not ugly, but so I don't have hope anymore, because hope is I have no idea and I don't know. So I'm just gonna chuck this penny into this water well, and I hope I get what I want. But I operate on faith, and faith is knowing that everything is happening exactly the way that it's happening. It's not that it's happening the way that it's supposed to, or anything like that. That it's happening the way that it's happening, and that I admit that I don't know anything, and that I get on my knees and I look up and I say, I'm at your service, because I don't know what I'm doing. Because I thought that I knew what I was doing from the moment that you gave birth to me, you created me. Before there was anything else except for me, I don't know what I'm doing. And I admit that, and I surrender. And there's so many cycles going on. There's nothing for me to do about it. I can't change the world. I don't want to. I can't save the world. I don't want to. I can't change. I don't want to. I don't care to, because it's perfect. This is a cycle of perfection that's occurring. Divinity has created all, and everything is a reflection of divinity. So how can divinity create anything less than divinity? But for me to think that there's anything wrong or anything to change or address or anything about my world is me lacking awareness of perfection, of divinity. And that shit alone has been fire for me. It has burned all of my crap over and over again. It's like, are you sure you don't want to save the world? Like, I can't save the world. What do you mean the world? And then I always around the conversation, I would hear the word world or universe. I mean, do you know how the speck that I am? I can't change anything. I don't want to, because it's perfect. It's like, well, what about the state of the United States? Look, man, if you want a cool story, the United States is the new Atlantis. Why are we getting shit? Well, there's a reason why Atlantis fell. Because a group of mofos were thinking too much. They wanted too much. No, there could be a cooler, more dope-ass way to do everything. It's like, okay, here we are. Modern day society. But anything between the governments, we've given power to them. We the people, it's actually just you. It's not we the people. And I still have Alan Watts in high regards. He always said, everything that you think is wrong with the world is everything that you are not aware that you think is wrong with you. Any judgment that you have upon the world is a judgment that you actually have upon yourself. So if you see evil, it's because you're creating it. And that became a practice for me before I even got into alchemy. Before this motherfucker came to me, I understood. I was like, okay, there's nothing for me to do here. Like, no. All right. So should I change? So like, no. I mean, if you want to, you have will. I've given you free will to do as thou wilt. But that's part of the trick. Do I give you access to all? And are you just going to mess with everything or allow it? Oh, I see this game. You make me bipedal, and you want me to see if I'm going to dance and do the tap dance and, do all this stuff, or stay still. It's like, yeah, maybe. Let's see what you do. So I gave up on the idea of that there's something wrong, that, things are in need of reformation or anything. In his life, and this is in the deeper aspects of alchemy, life is evolution. Evolution is life. Life is love. Love is life. Love is evolution. Evolution is love. That's why you exist. That's why you're aware. Doesn't matter what you're aware of, you have awareness. You're conscious. You're self-conscious. You're self-aware. That's it. And if there's anything that you see wrong with the world, that's what happened to me. I looked into the world and I was like, but it's all fucked up. And then I realized, wait, who am I to say? Where do I get off thinking that I have a greater plan than divinity? That I know better or more than divinity? And that was my that was my third or fifth quote unquote ego death. It's like, wait, are you sure that it's like, no, Raven, there's nothing to change? Like, what? No, it's perfect. Wait, but there's no, like, oh my God. Okay. Oh, you're crucifying me. The cross, time and space. Oh shit, God. Okay. Oh my God. Like, yeah, just chill out. Relax. You're like mad hype for no reason other than your own creative reasons. You're so excited. It's like my dog, Alistair. It's like he just gets so stoked, like, you son of a bitch, I'm in, I'm down, bro. Let's do everything. I'm like, no, I'm just going to get a glass of water. We're not going on a hike right now. Are you sure? That's what my mind's been my entire life. Like, no, we must free society through art, or we must be Robin Hoods and steal from the rich and give to the poor. Like, all this stuff. I was like, well, because it's very theatrical, right? It's very Hollywood. It's very, even like Marvel's like universe. It's like, yeah, I'm going to save the universe with my archetypes and I'm going to change shit. And it's like, maybe. I mean, you can. That's magic, right? But have you ever given the thought of, what if it's already happening the way that it's going to happen? And you're just here to, I don't know, start with the training wheels. You think you could do little willies and shit, and then slowly get one wheel off, one training wheel off. And you're like, oh, I could do it. Oh, I don't think I could do a willy without this other wheel. And you put it back on. And it's just this back and forth game that I've been playing for so long. And now, if I even get on a bike, it's because God gave me an intuition, like, hey, we're going for a bike ride. Okay. No idea. No desire. I'm just empty, which is love, right? To be empty, you receive. You're open to the universe when you're empty. To be empty, you have to have no desire, no prerogative, no destination, no merit, no goal. It's like, oh, that's exactly how that red fox came to me. Anyways, that's, yeah. So I don't have, that's my comment on the idea of these cycles and evolution, and it's all happening, Sky, like right as we speak. We just have a different idea of time as being linear. So we get caught up and we get impatient. We're a species of instant gratification, just like my dog. It's just like, give it to me now, bro. I just want it now. Is that enough? No. I just ate a whole rotisserie chicken. I want more. Like, how? You never satisfied. Oh, so I have to now be the mother and father and regulate. Because if not, you're going to get fat. And you're going to start getting like human diseases. And then you're like having diarrhea everywhere. Got it. I have to regulate this shit. And I have to do this for the world. But that's because the world doesn't exist. It's just I am the world is I. You know, when you don't feel well and you have like a symptom, right? Usually these symptoms are just your body taking care of shit, right? People get all freaked out. I have a fever, I'm dying. Maybe not. Mostly maybe not. Your body is cleaning things up. That's why you have a fever. You don't need to take something that will get rid of the fever, because you're actually ruining your body's immune system's job to take care of this thing. I don't have to tell my immune system, oh, hey, I have detected the flu virus inside of me, and I need you to take care of that. And like, oh, okay, immune system, here come the T cells and the white blood cells, I don't need to do that. Same thing with the world. The world is like the immune system. It'll just do the thing. And I don't have to do anything about it, except, no, nothing about it. Just mind my business and do my thing. Besides, how do you know that the world exists? That's what I got caught up before alchemy. It's like, I only know about the world because of my phone or a computer. Oh, but you've traveled places. Yeah, I know. But so, and I get into this machine called a plane, and apparently it flies me from point A to point B, and point B is a new state or country. And I get out and I'm in this new place. Apparently, I don't know. I don't know if this is a fact. Just like I don't know if space is a fact. I've never been to space. I don't know anything. I believe everything everybody tells me, that there are countries and governments and police and rules and drugs and alcohol and relationships and stuff. Like that, I eat it up, right? But it's a belief. And the only thing I know is that the world that you and I are talking about right now is a human construct, or a construct of Hermes, Mercury, Thoth, or a delusion, an illusion. But when I look into nature, and you know this, you live in a beautiful place that I want to come visit. You look around your landscape and you see it. That's it. There's no government. There's no policing. Sure, you can see cops maybe, but that's just, it is what it is. We're the ones that impose our will or our imaginations or our beliefs onto everything. It's like, people say we had a shitty president. We didn't have any other choice, so we opted for this living mummy, and to be our new president. That's probably going to get offed by the chick, and she's going to be the new president. But COVID, and we got to exalt the human race. It's like maybe, or maybe just sit back and enjoy the show. Because it's gonna work out, not work out for the best of humanity. That's not the point. it's just always working out. And so that's been my life for a number of years now. And I've ran into so many walls with people. Hey Raven, what's your opinion about politics? I'm like, what's that? Well, like, are you a liberal? I'm like, no, I'm not even Raven. That's my persona. That's my character. Yeah, but like, what's your take? What do you mean? What's my take? I don't take anything from it. What do you mean? What's your opinion? I don't have one. No, you can't just do that. You have to have like, okay. For the sake of performance, my opinion is, I don't care. You have to care. No, I don't. Because you care. I could look on Instagram and there are 14.5 million people that care. I haven't seen anything change. Plus, everybody's divided against themselves or each other. Same, right? Like, yeah. You guys just keep telling me the stories and I'll watch. And if I get bored, I'll just change the channel. It might mean that I just go into the lab more often, or I do some ketamine and I just change the channel. I'm like, screw it. Or I drink some wine, or go for a run, go for a hike, take my dog out to the mountains, just be gone all weekend. Like, yeah, I get the story. It is what it is. It's fascinating. It's interesting. It is what it is. But there's nothing to change. It's perfect. And to me, I always corner people with this. So you believe in divinity? Yeah, bro. Yeah. Okay. So why do you think you have anything to do or change? Are you above divinity? No. Divinity is all. I'm at its service. All right. So what are you doing? No, it's just people are hurting. There's homeless people. There's hungry people. There are children that are, and it's like, yeah, because you say so. No, Raven, you need to be more compassionate. I'm like, I am. That's why I'm entertaining this conversation with you. I'm being very compassionate. Do I actually care? No, because I don't believe in any of the stuff that you're telling me. Because if I believe it, I mean, okay, let's not even talk alchemy, right? Quantum physics dictates that the particle is only there or exists because the observer is paying attention or giving it power. And that's it. It's like, yeah, your belief and where you put your attention is what makes your reality. Your reality. It doesn't make reality. It makes the experience that you're having of reality. And I've come to the point where I've let go of that stuff and I'm chilling. There's nothing else to worry about because there's human life, which is the tree of knowledge of good and evil in Eden. And then there's nature, which is the tree of life, bliss, no thought, it is. And of course, the alchemist works in the middle of those two, right? It's like, yeah, I'm going to give a story to what is, and I'm going to tell the greatest story ever told. And that's it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask you like kind of like a random question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you may not have any insight or whatever, because these are just stories. Or
Yeah.
maybe you do have experience. I don't know. You live in New Mexico. There's a lot of groups of individuals that have probability or whatever to believe that there might be, forms of like underground kind of hidden bio labs or experimenting with, forms of advanced technology or stuff like this. I'm curious, like, how probable do you think, I mean, it seems like it's pretty probable to me. How probable do you think it is that there are these types of things, or do you think it's all just hype and rumors? And I wanted to also ask you, like, your thoughts on, do you believe, or do you think, or what's your thoughts around, do you think, what's the probability of that there are like clones walking amongst us? How far has certain technologies that we may not even be aware of, how prevalent might they be that we aren't even aware of, that exist and are amongst us and around us?
Well, we are, how to explain this?
Or
aside from alchemy, right? Because, okay, take you for example, Sky, right? You weren't born knowing about alchemy, right? This shit just came up some point in your life, right?
Right.
So that doesn't mean that there was no alchemy before you knew about it. But what that does mean is that there were stories before you knew about alchemy, right?
Right.
Which means that there have been stories that have been happening for a very long time. And time is not linear. Time exists all at the same time, right? There is no such thing as time. It's all happening in the same moment. Oh, but Raven, why do I have memories of Egypt? That's because your soul is still tethered to Egypt, and Egypt is still happening right now. Oh, but what about when I was like a Palladian, Lemurian? Yes, because there is a timeline that exists in this very and only moment in which your soul is pretending to be a Lemurian or a Palladian. It's all happening at the same now, this very moment. Okay. And the mind has an impeccable and insatiable thing with stories, right? And it all started with the story of what came first, the chicken or the egg. What's the answer? Well, the answer is that the CIA and the military-industrial complex are not even from this reality. They exist in all these other realities, and they have figured out time travel or time jumping. And you can just fuck with things. You can manipulate everything. It's sorcery. It's magic. And that's just what's up. You can clone anything. I mean, yeah, you can clone anything in nature, organic or inorganic. You can clone anything. You can recreate anything, and you can create new things just with a thought. And we've been doing this for a long time. And here's the thing. So you know the idea of the archetype of the alchemist, right? We have been kidnapped by emperors, kings, queens, priests, gurus. We've been kidnapped and tortured and enslaved to give them elixirs of youth, immortality, gold, you know, because we're the only ones that aren't bullshitting ourselves or anybody else. We know what's up. And for some reason, reality always comes back to us. But us observing all these stories, you get to realize, like, oh, yeah, I've been, the eye has been creating very intricate stories for a very long, quote unquote, time. And there are individuals that seek power, control, and dominance. And I'm not saying those words with the context of evil, or maliciousness. It's just like the Masonic chessboard, right? Black versus white. The sun versus the moon. Good versus evil. Light versus dark. And there have been individuals. You know, these individuals led to the fall of Atlantis. But everything has a reason. But anyways, through sorcery, power, they want control. They want to know everything because it puts them ahead of everything. And there are factions on this planet that predate humans from the experiences that I've had. And they do things like clone. They understand that. So how I explain to you, Sky, that you can take like I can make a fox spagyric, right? All the way, fully alchemical. Drink the whole thing, go to sleep, and my consciousness leaves Raven's character and goes into a fox. Like I could be a mama fox with in a den with her fox pups. So consciousness can be pulled out from one place into another. And you can create clones and put consciousness or life into them. And if you have an agenda, well, yeah, you could do whatever you want. You could open up stargates. You can go, because if you understand time, it's like all the Kabbalistic mofos, right? They understand magic, so they understand space and time. And now just imagine you have the military-industrial complex. They can create a lot of things. To me personally, by the way, I used to think that they were badass. It's primitive technology. It's baby. It's like, it's Mickey Mouse work. It's so small. It's not even scratching the surface to what we can do. But that doesn't matter to some individuals. They get hyped off the idea of changing matter or changing space and time or timelines. And it's like the idea of money. If enough people believe in it, it's real, right? Your reality is real. That real reality. What you believe is real. That's just what it is. It's not what it actually is, but it's what it is for you. And there have been some very interesting games that we've been playing before Sumeria. So there's always been the slave game, power game, the sorcery control game, the game of creating technology and advancing in science and blah, blah, blah. So we can outperform your enemy country, your enemies in general. You just want like a star sticker on your forehead. You did great. Look at you. You're amazing. Whatever the case is, it's like there's a egoic game of self-recognition, but through other, that you've got the bigger guns, the bigger technology. This is what I'm like chalking it down to, right? But to answer the question all the way, yes, there is human cloning. I've seen, oh God. There's just stuff that's been, I mean, why do you think our government gives so much money to the military? Who the fuck is the military? Who are those guys? They're not the government. I thought that the military and the government were the same thing. They're not. Because if they were, we wouldn't be broke as a nation. But why do we give billions and trillions of dollars to military industrial complex experiments, projects, weapons, all this crap, right? But they're real. They've been real for a very long time. The Egyptians talked about coming in contact with beings from the skies, the Hindus, the Chinese, they've all talked about it. The Incas, the Mayas, the Aztecs, they've all talked about different species of beings that have come from the skies on fire illuminated, wings, dragons, are all like spaceships and shit, right? And they teach them things, and some of them enslave them. Some of them want the best for us. And I'll be honest, they're cool stories. I like them. They're interesting as fuck. They're really interesting. But it's not the truth. There's only one truth. So I always ground myself back down to that, so that I don't try to manifest what I think would be a really cool story. Aliens with tentacles come down here, and like some of them are hot, and we breed with them, and like we advance as a species, and we become like humanoid aliens. Like, it's cool, it's sexy, it's weird, it's we like that kind of stuff, right? It's like fruits and vegetables, like meats and stuff from another country, right? We just naturally are like that as a species. So it's there. But what I've been doing now, because alchemy has ruined all the magic of my BS stories. And I realized, this is the truth. Yeah. Can I still have aliens? And I mean, it's there. Okay, cool. So it's happening. Like, well, yeah, it's happening. You're being spied on. They're watching you, and they want to make sure that you're not telling people how to make gold or the Philosopher's Stone because they want that power. Or like in Rick and Morty, they may show up and they want the recipes to concentrated dark matter. It's there. It's real, and it's very fucking real. But it's real if you want it to be. Also,
right.
If you're paying attention to it, yeah.
And so,
because
like,
your story could also be there's God and hell.
yeah. And so like with that, so like all is mind, all is Hermes. So that like the alchemists say that aspect of the mind, say they're like the tapped in aspect of the mind. And then there's like these deviating aspects of mind, these that kind of like they're like hijacking, or these they're parasitically latching on to this power and trying to accumulate whatever they can. Like what is that archetype? Like what's the pinnacle of that archetype or that entity of mind, so to speak? Like I would assume there's also a polarity at play, as you know, polarity is law. That opposing force, maybe would that opposing force be nature, and would that parasitic force be the opposition to it? Like would that be like the yin and yang of the all? Or
well, you know how opposition, so the beauty about opposition is that you have the potential within you to surpass that. Does that make sense?
I like the middle.
All right, so the only reason that I fell from grace is because I can have an epic fucking story of my rise from hell. Make sense?
I think so, yeah.
It's just for the sake of a story, right? The only reason that the phoenix is so important is because the phoenix must die and burn to an ash. And from the ashes, the phoenix shall rise, right? That's what we want. We want to hear the story of the phoenix rising. What we don't care about is the story of the phoenix falling, decaying, becoming decrepit, useless, depressed, anxious, lonely, all this stuff, right? Like we don't care about that. We just want to hear the story about, like, yeah. But you can't get the angels and the cherubs and the trumpets if there isn't a death, if there isn't a destruction, if there isn't like a fallacy, a lie, a deceit, a betrayal, a delusion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just, if metals, all the metals are becoming gold, right? That's what we want to hear. We want to see the story of how lead becomes gold. If we didn't have that, then it would just be gold. There would be no point. There wouldn't even be gold. You know what I mean? It would just be like, oh, I'm everything. This is whack. Can we try this again? Make me forget more. Like, really make me forget. Because, oh my God, I'm just a baby. I'm a boy. And I'm from this ethnicity. And like, I was born in this place. And life is so hard. Maybe I'll get financial aid because I'm a this. And, oh no, I'm in debt. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's awesome. It's how something crude became perfect. How a diamond, which looks like a milky piece of rock, right, was exuded out of the ground and shaped and then faceted and polished. And it's like, here you go, girl. Will you marry me? That's a diamond. 3 carats. Like, oh my God. That's the whole I'm not saying the point is to get married and get, your partner a ring. What I'm saying is that's just what makes the story. It's from the gross to perfection, right? From the gross matter to the quintessence, the exaltation, and the work that comes behind it. It's like actually my one teacher, he said to me, it's not I mean we've all heard this before, it's not the destination, right? It's the journey. And that's what we're doing right now as we speak. Tomorrow when you wake up and you're like in your bed scratching your balls and you're not sure if you want to get out of bed yet, but you gotta pee, like that's part of it. It's like it doesn't matter what you do or what you want to do, it's happening whether you want to be a part of it or not, because you can't not be a part of it. That's why you're here. You're a part of perfection. You're a diamond in the rough. You're a god pretending to be a human. And it's cute. It's pretty. It's awesome. It's compelling.
Amen to that. Well, you have, I mean, I had high expectations going into this conversation, but you surpassed those expectations. I don't know. Do you have any last messages for the people that you would like to throw out there, or just any last thoughts before we kind of wrap it up?
Any messages for the people? No, because we got this.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what I say, right? Because it's happening anyways, whether we want to or not. It doesn't matter. I've offed myself and I come back in this body. I've taken this body, I've overdosed, I've done crazy stuff to get me out of here, and I just keep coming back. It's like, oh, I don't have a choice. Like, no, you don't. The only choice you do have is whether or not you have a quote unquote bad day or not. Like, okay. It's like, yeah. Practice what you preach. That would be if I had a message for people. Practice what you preach and analyze and study what it is that you tell people and that you hashtag and you repeat, right? It's like love and light. Okay, what does that mean? Love and light. Are you rejecting something? Are you rejecting the man in the street corner in Beijing shooting up heroin? Is that part of love and light? Do you see the love and the light in the performance of a man shooting up heroin? Do you see it? No, he needs love and light. No, that's not love and light. Because love is everything, and light is how your material world is created, right? And yeah, it kind of doesn't really matter because people will still show up to us and they'll still ask the same questions. And it's like, you got it. Like, you're doing it. You don't need to go to a priest. You don't need to go to Machu Picchu for the 13th time to take ayahuasca and shit your pants and pee everywhere and go to, like, you don't need any of that. Like, you're here. I mean, that's what you want to do. But like, you're here. You're already doing it. The anxiety of the future that's never going to come is futile. The future will never happen. 5 seconds from now will still be now, right? And the past never happened. It's a memory that you have. So if the past never happened and the future is never going to come, well, what do I do? Whatever God or the universe puts in front of you, bro. Like, you're here. That's it. That's your gift. That's your gift to yourself. That's the gift to the world. That's the beauty of you, is that, yeah, you're special. Well, you're not special, but you're unique. That's why rosemary smells like rosemary, and rose geranium smells like rose geranium, right? It's God pretending to be everything. So yeah, you are unique. We're not special, but we're unique. And but there's nothing to do, honestly. So if you want to practice alchemy, cool. That's not going to change anything. If you don't want to practice alchemy and you want to do ritual magic, or join a convent and become a nun or a priest, or you want to be a Satanist or Luciferian, or you want to be a serial killer. It probably shouldn't say that, but it doesn't matter because like, I don't matter. I don't matter. I really don't. I don't matter. I'm not special. I don't matter, dude, because I'm you. I'm you, Sky. Like, anything that I do doesn't really matter because I don't do anything. I just do what I'm told. And honestly, that I mean, it's profanity. That shit right there, that became my life. Like, I don't have to do anything. No. Bro, like, I'm not Alice anymore. Like, the world is not on my shoulders. Like, no, not at all. You're not even on your shoulders. You don't even exist. What'd you say? No, nothing. You're good. You don't have to do shit. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just bring you everything. Like, fuck. And this is what I've been, my closest people in my life, I've been sharing this with them. They go through their shit. They go through the hardships or in pain. For some weird reason, they show up here in Taos at my door. Raven, I'm just like, and I'm laughing. And they get mad at first. Why are you laughing at me? And I grab them by their cheeks. I'm like, I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at myself right now. And they get it. It takes them a while, maybe the most like a weekend. And it's like, yeah, dude, you got this. Whether you want to have it or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But your intention, true intention, not what you want, not what you desire, not what you need, but intention. Intention coming from intuition, coming from inside, right? What is my intention? My intention is to do what I'm asked to do. Whether it's drive old ladies around house to go to appointments, or they pay me to keep them company, or yeah, I just do it because it's there, you know? And it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, I wouldn't mind if I had a 2022 4Runner and Tacoma and a Lamborghini in my garage, but I don't care. It'd be fun. I'm Mercury, right? I'm Hermes. I love going fast, but I have everything. Not that I need or want. I have everything. You have everything, and everyone's got everything. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to change the world. I'm just more interested in repeating, mimicking, imitating what nature is doing, and everything else falls into place. It's just, yeah, that's all I'll leave it at. It's remarkable when you continue to practice this thing of, I'm just going to do what's in front of me through love and observation. I want to understand you. I want to comprehend you. So I mimic you. You know, like little kids sometimes mimic us? It's the same thing. They love us so much. It's almost like they want to be us. That's love right there. But I do it with nature. Same.
Beautiful. How can people find you and learn more about what you're up to and your expression in general? Where would you direct them?
So I mostly do everything on Instagram. It's Materia _Artium _labs. And I have a website, materiaartium.com. But the thing with the website is Materia is not my business. It's not how I make money. It's nothing like that. It's just my art gallery. It's my exhibition. It's just where I put the things that I craft, and I have extra because I can't drink all this stuff by myself. Like, I get it, right? So that's just where I put it up. And, yeah, that's pretty much it for right now. I'm being asked to teach and do a lot of writing, but that's people. But yeah, materiaartium.com and materia_artium_labs on Instagram. I'm working on being more, I'm always working on being more public. But yeah, this is where I expose everything that I make. And yeah, with time, I'll start to create more stories behind everything that I do.
Beautiful. Well, this was amazing. I greatly appreciate you and your time. And
I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I'm excited to share this with the other aspects of ourselves. So with that being said, thank you again and have a good one.
You too, brother. I love you, man. Thank you for everything.